talk about writing the script and what was the inspiration for creating this film and these characters.
Inspiration. There's too long of a story. I'll just say that there was a short film that I did a very long time ago, and after I did it, it did really well online. And then I took a bunch of meetings, and everyone was like, "Oh, don't you want to make a feature?" And I said no, which was stupid. And I would never recommend that. You should have a backup plan, or if you have a feature, make your short out of it or something. Anyways, I didn't have that. I just wanted to make a good short. And everything about it was a surprise, and I didn't have a good solution for how to make a movie out of it, and I didn't really want to cheapen it. So I just sort of killed a bunch of meetings of people who were interested and turned them into generals. That was like a huge waste of time. And then I started directing commercials, and I was in advertising for a long time.
This is good that you're bringing this up, because we have a lot of filmmaker members of Film Independent, and so I usually ask, what's your advice? Would you do something different, or what's your advice?
My advice, you should do what Damien Chazelle did, and you should have a feature that you really want to do, and then the one you're gonna do, and then you should have the short that you're gonna make to sell that feature. That's the best way to do it.
You know what? I think that's absolutely true, because I have talked to several filmmakers who were like, they made their first feature, and then because they already had the second one ready to go, it just took off. Like, so they had 2 films then within 2 years. So
totally, I think that's 100% the right thing to do, and I wish I had been prepared, or even like had a script adjacent. Like if I had done a contained thriller, maybe someone would have been interested. I had like the most unsellable, ruin your career kind of like third movie you could make. It was everything that no one wanted, like anti-war, anti-Iraq, a drug addict, and then like the plot would go away midway through.
I want to see all the ruin your career. I want to see all the absolutely ruin your career movies.
I would love to have ruined my career with it, but no one wanted to give me money up front.
I want to start the Ruin Your Career Film Festival. So are you inspired by and usually attracted to films like this, kind of like thriller, crime,
yes,
seat of your pants, everything going wrong all the time?
I do love those kinds of movies. Those are like really like the things I love maybe the most, and especially like the easy, like I'm not easy, but like I think the just true drama of like, oh, here's a room and there's an argument about something, and can you trust anybody? I just love those kinds of movies. I think those are some of the ones I loved as a kid growing up, or like the ones that were like really inspiring. So definitely that's what I wanted to do here, and just again, like if it was all in one location, that kind of I think I was again when after the short had been successful, I was like, I don't know if I want to do a one location movie. There's all those things that are kind of on your mind, but really embracing that and like, okay, how can I keep it in one room, and how do you keep it as locked in as possible? Maybe give you a breath so you don't feel like you're just stuck in the same place all the time. But I mean, I do love those movies. Those are some of my favorites, so for sure.
I mean, it pretty much is a one location movie, but for some reason it doesn't really feel like it. I guess because everybody's moving around so much all the time that it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm stuck in one place in this.
Oh, great. That's wonderful to hear. I think, one of the things that we tried to do, or I even tried to do in the script, was like there's the lights are on and then they get turned off. And then once they're off, then we could kind of like define moments almost by color. So like, oh, if we're by this area, it's red. If it's over here, it's orange. If it's there, it's like a blue-green. And so like we could kind of like, even though we were kind of stuck, we'd also felt like, oh, we're in a new place all the time, and we could use lighting to sort of help it feel like we're changing it maybe more than we are.
Well, then when she ends up with like in like the fridge/freezer, I was like, I didn't know this was here. When she opens it, I was like, where is she?
What's right there in the back?
This is like the largest convenience store that ever happened. I love that there was like another location that you didn't realize was there until the end. I was like, oh yeah, she's behind the beverages now.
A fun story from a production design standpoint. The production designer Robert, when he was like building the wall, he's like, we were having like a conversation about budget, and he's like, oh, I can't put doors on here. It's like, you don't need to put real working doors because no one ever opens them. So you just put a piece of glass, and we'll screw in handles in front of them. and we'll pretend like it is. And he's like, oh, that's easier. So, no one could ever open that back door. But
It's a lot of pretend in the movies. Whole lot of pretend.
there's a whole lot of pretend.
No, I think it's always amazing to look at actual sets. Like, I assume this wasn't a real store, was it?
We would have loved to get a real store just for budget reasons, but it wasn't really a possibility. And so we ended up finding, there's in Commerce,
Yeah.
there was like a abandoned, not abandoned, I think they just got kicked out for growing weed. Because the first day we went in there, it was like we were high already, and it smelled like weed, and we knocked down a bunch of walls because it was like, you could obviously tell they were like different stages. I don't know enough about growing, but I was like, I don't know why it's like a rat's maze inside here. And so we knocked down a bunch of walls and put in our little set, and then put our hospital set next door.
It's amazing what you'll just buy as an audience without realizing that you'll just buy into it. Like, I remember watching them shoot an episode of Alias one time on a lot, and I was like, what's the next thing? Oh, we're shooting a scene where they're in Poland. I was like, oh, this is going to be really interesting. They just shot between two buildings on the Disney lot. They're like, we're in an alley in Poland. And then when I watched the episode, I'm like, I'm totally buying that's an alley in Poland. So let's talk about your actors.
Wonderful.
Did you?
Let's talk about them.
How did you find all these dudes?
What hole did you find these guys?
I was really blessed. I had a wonderful casting director named Jessica Sherman. Woo! And I would recommend any filmmaker find a wonderful casting director. And she, long story also from this crazy film was that I was on another movie right before this that fell apart. The budgeting dropped out like literally 11th hour. I had quit my job in advertising, and I was in Austin, and suddenly we had no money suddenly. And I was like, well, I quit my job. What am I going to do right now? And I had this script, and I had built a good relationship with Jessica, and I was like, what do you think of this script? Do you think anybody would want to be in it? And she said, well, let me see. I think it's good. Let me see if anyone's interested. And then basically everyone came from that. And I'm incredibly grateful.
So it's a really exciting film to watch, but I'm wondering from the actor's side, from behind the scenes, what had any of you been starred in this genre of film before, like an action type of film? Just wondering, like, what's it like to get shot? What's it like to get stabbed? What's it like to pretend that you're dead?
Good time. Everything we dreamed of. I've done a horror before, and there are many similar elements. I seem to be wet a lot. Thank you, Dan. Dan thinks I hated the entire experience because I was wet almost every day. It's not entirely untrue. No, I loved it.
You ruined those shoes, though, that first day.
Oh, yeah, the shoes.
I felt so bad about that. We were like...
Oh, wet because it was raining.
Yeah, we had...
Okay.
It was when Abraham takes the car and he stops at the train. That was my first day.
That was your first day.
Oh, okay.
Oh, first night, I should
night,
say.
yes.
Yeah, first night. And
Did you have a rain machine then?
We had a rain machine.
Nice.
And then after we left there, we were like, we just needed shots of you running around.
Oh, yeah, that was that same night, too.
Same night. So we had shot like a whole fight scene, and he's just drenched during that. And then he's like, we're going to go for a run now. And
At 5 a.m. in Commerce.
Yes.
It's interesting. No, I mean, really, as terrifying as that sounds, it really is what's so exciting about this level of filmmaking. You get to get stuck in straight away with everyone. And I don't know that that's for everyone, but I really enjoyed that and loved working with Dan and how stuck in he wanted to get into everything too. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Adult playground for sure.
How I suspected that it was fun to make a thriller. How many shooting days did you have on here?
I mean,
18?
no, 16 is like our quoted. I think like the first day is like a half day. So really, we're going to say 16, but I think it's like a 15, 16-day shoot. Yeah.
Nights.
So let's talk about the person who couldn't be here, which is Angus, who passed away earlier this year. Do you want to talk a little bit, like, what was Angus like? What was Angus like to work with? And this question is for everybody.
I'm going to pass it over because I feel like I've talked too much, but he was wonderful.
what I want to say about Angus is it's so interesting in this film deciding who's good and who's bad, because I'm sort of thinking from the beginning, like, okay, who's going to still be alive at the end? And it's tough to tell with Angus because he's so likable, even if he's playing someone who's kind of shady, that I wasn't really for sure if he was going to survive this or not. I really wasn't for sure who exactly was going to survive this or not, because it's hard to tell which characters are really, you sort of leave us wavering on which characters are really good and which characters are really bad.
I mean,
You're like, yeah, I did that on purpose.
well, I mean, this is and I didn't realize, I realized while writing it, but like, Angus is the only person who doesn't kill anyone in the whole movie. So, Musa doesn't kill anybody either, but I think pretty much anybody else does shoot somebody or kill somebody, and he's the only like true innocent in a weird way of, he wants to kill someone.
I'm sorry I interrupted. So we're going back to Angus. What was it like to work with Angus?
Just to add on to what you said about how likable he was, that's so true in not only this film, but in his other work. There was always something about him that you couldn't really take your eyes off of. And that's ever present in this film. And it was incredible to work with him, incredible to know him. I think we all feel very lucky. I like to say, looking into his eyes, like his eyes always told a million different stories. And so it's easy to be in a scene opposite him because he's giving you so much without having to say anything or do much. His eyes said it all. And as an actor, as a fellow actor, that makes my job a lot easier because I get to be there in this moment with him and see it out. So, yeah, and on top of that, he was the most lovable guy. He was always ready to approach the work, to come in at 5 p.m. And leave at 5 a.m. with the exact same great, happy to be there attitude he had when he walked in.
Yeah, he definitely, there's a raw magnetism to him, which I'm sure anyone who knows his work would agree, that it was so inspiring when we were filming, how effortlessly he could bring something to life in such a unique way. And it's continued to be an inspiration, since with everything. And I think I said to you, Dan, I realized afterwards, because when I heard the news, Dan was my first call, and it was so shocking. And I'd had one night with Angus where something had happened with his car, like he'd not totaled it, but something had happened, or he got locked in a car park or something. So I offered to take him home. He was like, cool. And so to have that one night with him afterwards, just getting to know him a bit more as a person, which I had not really given that much significance. And then afterwards, thinking about just how normal he was for his own sense of normal. He was just a really nice guy who was, in a moment of something extraordinary happening to him and kind of questioning it himself. He's like, I don't know, man, like whatever. But yeah, and I realized a random thing, but I realized we had the same birthday, which was crazy.
What was your birthday?
July 10th.
July 10th. Cancer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like Abraham's cancerous shit. You can't tell. But yeah, it's the little things like that his energy so present in this and the whole experience that we had, and what a wonderful opportunity to have something like this to like carry forward and creatively us to remember him, in this way.
Yeah.
Musa, you haven't said anything.
Come on.
Musa's sleepy.
I'm the quiet one.
He thinks he's getting out of this without.
I mean, I bonded with him because I'm from New York. I grew up in Brooklyn. He had such a street vibe to him. He felt like a little brother to me. So we always would just, on break. I always, I love making him laugh. Like we would always crack jokes. I would always kind of like, mess with him. I think there was that one video where I asked him, I was like, who do you, I said, who do you like better?
Of course you did.
Elliot or Zendaya? And he just kind of stood there and he was like, what? And he was like, nah, come on, man. Everybody's cool. Because that's his vibe. He was like, everybody, it's all.
Oh, you asked him who he liked better in the cast?
Yeah, I was like, Elliot or Zendaya? And he was like,
Zendaya. What are we doing?
and then he was
Okay.
just like, nah, it's all cool. And then we pan to you and you're like, answer the question. Get it right. But I think that's what made it fun. Like we everybody just bonded, and he was like raw and he was soulful, and it was nice to see somebody. It's sad to me because I think he would have really been an amazing star, but he is now like up there. But he was just a beautiful being. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see who you are now. I'm going to say you're the instigator. That's who I am.
Ask me how I felt about being in this movie. And I'll be honest. I hold no punches. Okay? So ask all the questions. I'll tell you who was in it.
How did you feel about being in this movie?
Well, the director's shit. Worst time. Can I? I'm going to tell him this story.
Go ahead.
This is good. Oh, no. So when I know Jessica, I've known her for a while, and she was like, hey, there's a script. It's a young director. You should see a short film. Tell me what you think. I'd love for you to be a part of this movie. So I was like, all right, yeah, cool. And I read the script. And I remember having a conversation. I was like, I'd love to talk to him. And we had a conversation, and one of the things that came up was, all right, do you want me to do an accent or no accent? And you first came off and you were like, I think we should do it as an accent. And I was like, well, tell me why. And you were like, you wrote it for it was based on your friend's dad.
Yeah, my best friend's dad.
Yeah.
In the script, he was Persian. Anyways, we had a whole conversation about
we had a
all
whole conversation. But this is why, because as an actor, you don't get that opportunity. So if your director's here and you really have a project, like listen or have a chance, talk to your actors. Because that was a conversation that we had, because you had this one vision of it. And I remember saying to you, I was like, well, let's read it. And let me just read it without the accent. And we were going back and forth on it. You were like, well, why would somebody who's American born want to be stuck in this? And I was like, oh, sir, I grew up in this shit. I did that. My dad had a grocery store. I did that, and I was miserable. And then we started adding things to the character. I was like, yeah, I think he should drink. And you were like, yeah, okay. And it was just good to be able to build that stuff. And so as a shit filmmaker, he was very open to working together and creating. And now he is one of the best. I made him the best filmmaker ever. So
That's what happens when you let him speak. So we keep him.
I told you, you should have.
I knew Musa was the one, you guys.
Yeah.
I knew he was the one. Last thing about Angus, I was in Italy this summer and saw, couture fashion billboards with Angus on it. And I was like, I hadn't even realized what level he had gotten to. He was like, it was like Dior, Gucci. I don't know what I think he was with one particular fashion house.
He was into polo.
Love polo.
Love polo.
Like he would talk about it.
And
out
then
of nowhere.
manifested it into reality.
He did. He manifested that whole thing. He was such a fan of polo. That
He was wearing it like every day, right?
Yeah.
When he came in his own stuff.
And they gave him a campaign.
Yeah. And so it was just like, wow, the meteoric rise of this person coming from like doing this small part on, which he totally made his own on Euphoria. Yes. Sorry, I'm an old lady with an old brain. So what is next for the film? Are you opening? Do you have a distribution?
Yes.
Planned?
So we were fortunate enough. Basically, we had our sales agent. After we didn't have a sales agent when we made the movie, and then I showed a rough cut, and Paradigm signed up, and the kind of conversation we had, because the movie has like a bunch of special effects that I had to do, and I didn't really want to show it until they were done. Just like I don't know, showing rough cuts like kind of like an open wound, I guess. But they were like, there's a Christmas theme here. If you want anyone to put this movie out at Christmas, you should put it out to try and sell it in June. So we went out then, and then sold it right before he passed. So, and then Wilgo has picked it up. It's playing at Alamo Drafthouse Theaters. We did a preview screening last night, and then technically it starts on the 10th, although they have another screening tomorrow night. So, and then it plays for like a little short engagement, and then it's on VOD on the 14th. So,
I want to tell you, I have always believed, and I think it's really true, that most movies are a better experience on the big screen. And I watched this on my television at home, and then I came in and watched on the big screen, until 7:30 to 8:30 I watched. I did not remember the hard candy Christmas sequence. And I had a vague recollection of it, but I didn't realize, it didn't register that it was hard candy Christmas. It didn't register that you were watching it through the security video. I was like, this sequence is effing great, man. But it's really true. You don't notice stuff on a smaller screen sometimes. So that's just my, reminding everybody that everything's always better on a big screen.
100%. I think there's a train sequence in this that I think like the difference between watching that on a screen and watching it here is totally 100% different.
Also, shout out to Dan and all the work that he's done on this, which he won't say, because when we say effects, it's like half the movie is effect. That train was not real. There was no train at any point, and you wouldn't know. The Fly, was The Fly you as well?
Yeah.
It's the best fly I've ever seen in a film.
My breath in the freezer.
That's all fake. That's fake too.
A
But
little bit.
we couldn't afford refrigeration on this.
Very
But it was
nice.
cold in there.
But like, not only did you do it, it looks so good. It looks so good.
It does. It's fantastic.
That's the one thing.
It's
Second, because it's not normally how it ends up here, the crew, like on any production, especially on an indie like this, to have 15, 16 nights, mostly in the rain, doing this kind of film, and it's not a huge crew, but it's such dedicated passion and work from people to do it just because they love doing it and they want to support the people that are around them. And we have some people here tonight as well.
Woo!
Yes, get in.
Do we have
Just want to say
crew members too who works?
Yes, but we have Mitchie's right here.
yes, Mitch.
Joey.
Yes. Oh my God. Hi.
And then up in the back, we have our
Star.
Tracy.
Tracy!
Who just loves working on the film.
This is Tracy's favorite
And Star.
experience. She's very happy to be here. But yeah.
And then Matt Hutchinson, our composer, is also in the audience as well.
oh my God.
Thank you, everybody.
So good.
Well, so my last question is: the end of the movie was it a tough decision deciding who should get the money, and who should live, and who? Did you waver on any of that? Was it one way and then you're like switched to like another way?
I think one of the things, so with the short, part of the reason why I didn't want to make a feature was that everybody died. And that was, I was real like, it was very much, just the classic tragedy, everyone dies kind of thing. And I didn't want to make a movie where I was going to kill a pregnant woman and a baby. Like, I just didn't think, like, and the movie I wanted to make was going to be, I was going to hope it was going to be intense and, have all those things. And I think to kill her at the end of that would be, like, wrong. So, so I needed, I would have been unhappy with that as an ending. And especially after having children, maybe before, I don't know, maybe I could have been that harsh. But I just didn't want to end the movie with that kind of feeling. But I also didn't want it to be like, oh, everything's great. So oh, shit. Nick Pizzillo, our editor, is here as well, and I didn't say his name. He's right there in the hallway. Look at him. He's wearing Angus's coat from the film. Sorry, so I just had to bring him up. And he was in the corner and he was hiding earlier. So it was just like so finding like a solution for me that felt like like a feel bad kind of ending without, but still like have like I didn't have to kill everybody, but it felt like there was still like not this like, oh, everything's great, it's not sunshine and rainbows. I felt like once I had that was like a big part of like what made it an attractive film to make, because I didn't want, I felt like I needed to find like an uneasy truce, and that would make the rest of it kind of work for me.
Well, I really enjoyed seeing this movie twice and talking to all of you. And thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank
for
you.
coming.